Hi guys, welcome to this video on how to measure your bust, your waist, your hips and every other part of your body for dressmaking and pattern drafting. You also learn formulas you could use, especially if you have nobody to help you measure some areas, especially some areas at your back. But before we go straight to the actual video on how to measure yourself, if you click a link below this video, you are going to be able to download this measurement illustration completely free. It shows you exactly the measurements to make and how to make them. In this very first form, you're going to see measurements that are not illustrated here, but it's illustrated in the video that you're going to be looking at immediately. In the next sheet of this illustration, you're going to see a measurement form where you could write down all your measurements. For example, center front is number 1. If you go to the illustration, you see that number 1 right here is the center front. That shows you how to measure center front of your body, or the body of somebody that you want to sew for, or somebody you want to make a pattern for. So quickly go ahead and download the measurement illustration from the link immediately below this video. The other items you're going to be needing are small elastic bands, of course a tape that you're going to use to do the measurement. Your tape could be in centimeters or it could be in inches. The tape I'm going to be using is in centimeters. You need a biro, of course, to write down what you're going to be measuring, and you need a full-length room mirror. This is not so compulsory, but it is helpful. You're going to see it in the video. It's quite helpful. And of course, you need the downloaded measurement leaflet I just talked about. So now let's go straight and do the actual measurement. So now that you've downloaded the measurement illustration booklet, where you're going to write down all the measurements you are going to be taking, the elastics I showed to you, this is what you're going to do with it. You tie one around your neck where the collar of your dress is supposed to be, one at the highest point of your bust, as I've done it so, one at your waistline where your navel is, and then one where you have the widest part of your hips. Now it is good to stand behind the mirror. As you can see, I'm standing behind the mirror so that you could comfortably make sure that everything is actually in place. The measurements you are going to be taking is going to be much. Some of them are not really useful if you're doing a pattern block manually. But if you're going to maybe use a pattern software making system, most of the measurements I'm going to be making is something that you will need. Later in one of my courses, I will introduce you to a free software where you can put in all these measurements to be able to get your pattern. So we'll begin with the shoulder measurement. This is my tape. My tape is in centimeters. You could also use inches tape. Very first measurement we are going to measure is the shoulder to shoulder. Look for the bone here. There's a bone here, protruding bone here. That is where you will start, and you measure it up to the second bone on the other side across your neck, as you can see. So that is your shoulder to shoulder measurement. You write it down. For me, it's 42 cm. The next one is the across front measurement. Start from the center of your armpit down here, across front. But sometimes about 3 inches from your clavicle bone. This is your clavicle. About 3 inches there. That's about 10 centimeters or so. About 10 centimeters from your clavicle. That is where you have your across chest measurement. So measure from armpit to armpit. That is your across chest measurement. And for me, it's 40. For you to be able to get the across back measurement, it's not easy to do it by yourself, except you have somebody to help you do it. But if you do not have somebody, your across back measurement can be calculated. How do you do that? It's normally your shoulder measurement that we've done, this shoulder measurement, minus 1 inches. Shoulder measurement, if you are doing it in inches. If you are doing it in centimeters, it will be centimeters minus 2.5 centimeters. I repeat, to get your across back, which is not possible if you're alone, just do that calculation. It works best for most people. Like for me, my shoulder measurement is 42 cm. Minus 1, that will be 41. So my across back is 41. But to confirm that is correct, your across chest plus 1 should also give you the same thing. Most times it might not be exactly, but it is it's a kind of a measurement you can use that actually works at least 70% of the time. So this across chest minus 1 inch or minus 2.5. No, what am I saying? Across front plus 1 inch or plus 2.5 will give you your across back measurement. So the next measurement we are going to take is the full bust measurement. The full bust measurement, just put your tape behind, follow the elastic and just place it there. And that is your full bust. Shouldn't be too tight. That is your full bust measurement. And then the high bust measurement. Put the tape behind you, across on top of your bust, like so. On top of your bust. That is your high bust measurement. These two measurements you can also use to calculate to get your brassiere size. And how do you do that? It's normally your full bust measurement, this full bust, minus your high bust measurement. Whatever it gives you will help you to determine your cup size. Now the next measurement we are going to be taking is the center front. Center front is from where you have this elastic right to where you have the elastic for your waist. So just measure that and write it down. The next one is the full length front. Full length front, you start it from a center, from your center part of your shoulder, and then bring it down to your waist where you have the elastic here. That is your center front measurement. Now your bust width front is from your nipple, where you have your nipple, to the next nipple. For me it's normally 8 inches or about I think 24, either 24 or 23 cm. From one nipple to the next. Normally 8.5 or 24. Like right now I have 24 cm for me. Then the next one is what I call the chest height front. Chest height front is from the center where you have this one to your waist. Now some of this is not so important, but it's good to measure it. It's not so important if I do it manually. But if you're going to be using a kind of software for pattern making, you need all these kind of measurements. So it's from here to where the waist is elastic is. and that is the chest height front. The abdomen width is between the waist and the hips, in between the two. So you can always find out the distance between this to this, and then find the middle point, and that is for me 10 cm. The middle point is 10 cm, and that is where my abdomen measurement, I'm going to take it. So that is my abdomen measurement. That is the abdomen width. Good. The next measurement we are going to take using this book, the hip width, no, waist width front. That is number 6. Okay, waist width front, that is from here to here. That is your waist for the front. From here, side, middle of your side, to the middle of the other side. That is your waist width front. You also take the waist width back. You know, it's normally not the same. We'll take it. You need all that because of, as I said, we're going to be using a pattern software. You need that. But if it's just to make your own manual, you just take your full waist measurement, like so, across the elastic, and you write it down. Next one is your full hip measurement. You write down your full hip measurement, and then you go ahead and take your hip front from the center of your hip to the center of the other hip, front measurement, and write it down. So we're now done with the front measurements. What we are going to be doing now, we'll now take the hand measurement, and then we go to the back measurement. Taking your arm measurement, take your arm measurement at the largest part of your arm. This is quite easy to do, the largest part of it, and write it down. To take the full length of your arm, start from your shoulder. Allow the tape to just fall. Just start from that shoulder bone. Start from the shoulder bone. Allow the tape to fall, and then hold the tape such that it comes across your elbow, like that. Good. And then just look at where it stops at your wrist. For me right here, it's 80. I was using the other side, okay? From your shoulder, allow it to fall. Just lift up your arm like that. Make sure your tape is the same side. And then just look at the number you get at your wrist. For me here is 82 cm. That's how you measure your full length arm and your arm width. So we are done with those measurements. We are going to start from the back measurement. And what we are going to be taking first is the center length back. Center length back. Start, put the tape where you have the elastic at the neck. You see it at the mirror. You see the advantage of using a mirror to do your measurements. It's quite easy for you to do it alone. So put your tape where you have there. I'm sure you can see me clearly from the mirror side. Let me move back a little. So that is where your tape is. And then just hold it down to the where you have the waist. So that is your center length back. That's your center length back. You write down what you have there. And then for your full length back, shift it to your shoulder. The center of your shoulder between your neck and where you have your arm, that bone there. And then just make the tape up to the waist band, where you have the waist elastic band. Mark it with your finger and then take your measurements. The next measurement is what I call the blade point to blade point. Where is your blade point? Your blade point, there's a blade point here. If you do your hand, you can feel a blade point here, and you can feel another blade point here. Look at it there. That is your blade point. So there's no way you can take that place to this place. So there's a calculation for it, and the calculation is in that my download. The calculation is your nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2.7. If you're using centimeters to do the measurement, divide by 2.7. But if you're using inches, you divide by 1.1. Everything is in the download. I'll put a link under this video. You can click it to download the measurement illustrations. Everything, the calculations is there. Now the next one is what I call center of the two back blades to the waist point. That is this center here to this waist point. I will not be able to do that again. That one too, you still use a calculation. That will be your center length back. You know, we have taken the center length back, which was from here to the waist point. So that length you had divided by 1.8 cm or divided by 0.7 inches. You can see that from the download. All those calculations are there. Our next measurement is the hip side line. The hip side line is going to be from halfway between your waist and your hip, but at the back. Halfway, but at the back. That is your hip side line. That's what you're going to do. You measure that and you write it down. Then the waist side line, the same thing, from halfway to halfway. Remember, we measured the full waist, so halfway to halfway from the back, you measure it and put. You find that this thing is not the same, because in the front, you know, you have your tummy. Depends on how flat your tummy is. So it's always good to have this halfway measurement of your waist. Like if I look at it here, for me here it's 45 cm. Now for the front. For my front is 46. It's 46, 1 inches or so. That 46 and a half more. So it's always good to have your back halfway and your front halfway. It's good, and also have the full length of everything. Now the hip side line to side line, that is from the hip, center of the hip, to the other center. Center of the hip to the other center. That is your hip side line. Now your waist to hip center back. By the side, check your waist measurement by the side. From the waistband to the hip band, you check the measurement from the side. From the waist to the hip. Then the armpit to waist side line. That is from your armpit, center of your armpit, up to your waist. Center of your armpit, up to your waist. By the side. So that is about all you need for a blouse. Any other measurement you might need depends on the style that you're sewing, but with this kind of measurement you can always always make a block for yourself. The other measurement you might probably need if you're making trousers, you need to have the what I call the crush width. That is from this waist hip center back, just from the back, from the waist to this position. You will need that measurement from there to this position. You also need the measurement from here to this position. That is the waist hip center front, especially when you're going to be sewing your trousers, and you, of course, you need the full length from your waist down to your ankle, to be able to make your trousers. And I think that about sums up the major measurements that you will need to have in place. That does not mean that you should not measure yourself once in a while, because you find out that weights change. You could add or you could lose weight, so it's always advisable, even if you have your standard measurements, to always do a measurement whenever you want to make a new dress. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll be able to do your measurement. As I said when I started this video, a perfect measurement is required if you actually want to make a perfectly fitting dress. It starts from perfect measurement. So just follow what I've done, and I believe you'll be able to create a very beautiful block pattern that suits your style and your configuration. Thank you for watching.